5 ways to practice double stops. If we haven't met, hi, I'm Megan. I'm a violinist and teacher. I've been playing the violin for over 20 years. I have my bachelor's and master's degrees in violin performance, and I'm Suzuki trained. If you're enjoying my videos, please just take a quick second to make sure you're subscribed to my channel. It's easy, it's free, it's one click, and it really helps me out. And if you're interested in working with me, you can check the description for a private lesson application, as well as Learn Violin Online, which is my online self-paced learning program for players of all ability levels that comes with unlimited feedback from me. Double stops refers to playing 2 notes at the same time. And while they are incredibly beautiful, they can also be incredibly challenging. I think the first important thing to remember when practicing double stops is that even though you are playing 2 strings at once, you do not need to press twice as hard. In fact, when you're playing double stops, you'll have to press even less on your bow, aka be lighter on the bow, be softer on the bow, in order to get a good sound. Another tricky thing about double stops is intonation or tuning them because of the type of intonation that violins use. So violins use just intonation, which means that notes can be different depending on the key and depending on what notes you are playing together. So for example, I'm going to play B, first finger on the A string, and open E. That's in tune. If I leave my first finger exactly where it is and play it with open D, it'll sound like this. Not in tune. My B is too high. I need to move it backwards. Now it's in tune. So when you're tuning double stops, you cannot just rely on where you've always placed your finger. You have to understand how the interval that you're playing should sound and adjust your pitch accordingly. Interval simply refers to the distance between the notes. So if notes are 2 notes apart, that's an interval of a second. If they're 3 notes apart, that's an interval of a third, and so on. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about the theory behind this and more into the different types of intervals they are and learning how each of them sound, I'll leave my course Music Theory for Musicians, which covers all of this and more, linked in the description. So let's get into the practice techniques. Practice technique number 1 is to play the double stops without the left hand, aka to play the double stops with open strings. Now the goal of this exercise is, of course, yes, to make sure that you are creating a beautiful sound, that you are not pressing too hard on the bow. But it's also really good practice to make sure that your bow is consistently hitting both strings. In other words, you're not like waffling or waving back and forth between the strings. And it's great to identify where the string crossings are, where exactly your arm needs to go in order to create these double stops. So I'll be using trot number 1 as my example here. And so if I wanted to play the first 4 measures on open strings, it might sound like this. So I'm just playing the combination of open string double stops that I would use in the exercise without my fingers. The second practice technique is to play each note separately and then together. So when you're playing double stops, it can be hard to, 1, figure out the notes, right? We gotta figure out what notes we need to play in the first place, right? But then 2, to hear each note individually as you're playing the double stop. So for this exercise, you play 1 note by itself, you tune it if you need to, you play the next note by itself, you tune it if you need to, and then you play them together and try to hear the interval. So it might go something like this. That one's easy, right? So play each note by itself and then add them together. Eventually you can also slur it, something like this. That just requires you to move between the notes a little bit quicker. Practice technique number 3, again, is aimed at helping you hear the intonation or the pitch of each individual line. So you are going to finger both lines, but only bow one. So your left hand is still doing everything it needs to do to play the exercise correctly, but you are only bowing either the top string or the bottom string. So that exercise might sound like this. If I was bowing just the top string, and then if I was bowing just the bottom string, so I'm still using my fingers. My left hand is still doing what exactly it's going to do in the exercise. I'm only bowing one line, again, just so I can hear the intonation. Also, another little extra bonus tip, when you are playing double stops, particularly ones that, aren't just open string and a finger, when they're 2 fingers, really listen to the bottom note, because that's the note that's more likely to be out of tune. Our ear always goes to that highest pitch, so that note is more likely to be in tune, so that's why you want to tune your ear to the lower note. Practice technique number 4 and 5 apply to more complex double stop passages, although they can be used in any instance. I just think they're more effective for more complicated ones. I'll be using trot number 18 for this example. So practice technique number 4 is to verbalize how your fingers need to move. So I start with E and C sharp, so 1 on D, 2 on A. Then I need to lift my 2, place my 3 on D, and then place my 1 on A. So my 1 hops from D to A. Then my 1 hops back over to D, I lift my 3, and I place my 2. So when you're learning a complicated double stop passage, I think verbalizing exactly what you want to do with your fingers is really helpful, because it helps organize your fingers and it also helps organize your brain into knowing exactly what you need to do. And the 5th practice technique is to practice just isolating a pair of double stops. So in other words, just moving back and forth between 2 double stops. So the goal of this is really just to help with the intonation, to make sure that you are landing the double stop properly. So it might sound something like this. Another extra bonus is that you can also try finding the double stop out of nowhere, so that it doesn't matter how you approach it, because you just know where it is regardless. So like this, you play the double stop, you put your hand down, double stop again, hand down, etc. So those are 5 ways to practice double stops, as well as some extra techniques and tips for double stops. For me, the hardest part was always the intonation, because you really have to find what you need to do for that double stop specifically in order for it to be in tune, especially with solo bach, because there ain't nowhere to hide. If these tips were a little bit too advanced for you and you are just starting your violin double stop journey, I'm going to leave a video linked where I go over some beginning double stop exercises and how to learn how to play double stops in the first place. You can find that in the description. What's your favorite way to practice double stops? Leave a comment and let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and please make sure you subscribe before you go.